When it comes to LGBTQ+ representation among the big animation networks, Disney has always been dead last. Sure, we've gotten some characters here and there like Deputy Durland and Sheriff Blubbs, but their relationship was presented in such a way that could be interpreted as two close friends. No doubt an intentional move by Disney in trying to censor LGBTQ characters. Gravity Falls creator Alex Hirsch later confirmed the two were a couple in a charity stream. There's also the blink and you'll miss it type moments from Star vs. the Forces of Evil with Star Butterfly. This also applies with same-sex background couples who can easily be censored out. There's also been the trend of having LGBT characters be smaller side characters, such as Jackie Lynn from Star vs. the Forces of Evil having a girlfriend named Chloe towards the end of the series. Additionally, there is the implication or confirmation via social media method where showrunners or staff will make a post in regards to certain characters being LGBTQ+. This recently happened with Gravity Falls character Wendy Corduroy. Now, I should make it clear that I am in no way blaming these show creators or accusing them of baiting viewers or just using LGBT characters as a token minority. Disney's lack of representation has been entirely intentional on their end. Anything we have gotten in shows until recently was the furthest extent that execs at Disney were willing to go. Disney being a household name and having a big market definitely means showrunners are told to keep certain characters out to appeal to a wider market. This is something that Owl House creator Dana Terrace specifically noted in her interview.
And it's especially validating when you know that, especially for like the queer rep, it's especially validating to see people respond positively to it and relate to it when you've been told and you've seen other creators told before you that like the audience is so small. We got to think about the broader audience. We got to think about middle America. It's like there's no gay people in middle America. But it's nice.
But in the past few years, slowly but surely that has been changing, with shows being more and more inclusive and open with representation. And it's precisely because of the work and steps of others that have paved the way for Dana Terrace and the Owl House crew to have Disney's first canonically bisexual protagonist. After the airing of Enchanting Gromfright, Dana took to Twitter. In dev, I was very open about my intention to put queer kids in the main cast. I'm a horrible liar, so sneaking it in would have been hard. When we were greenlit, I was told by certain Disney leadership that I could not represent any form of bi or gay relationship on the channel. I'm bi. I want to write a bi character, damn it. Luckily, my stubbornness paid off, and now I am very supported by current Disney leadership. Thank you, Doug Benjamin and team, not to mention the amazingness of this crew. Many other crew members on Twitter were hyping Enchanting Gromfright up prior to the episode airing and also mentioned how this was one of their favorite episodes to work on. Animation supervisor for season 1 of the show, Spencer Wan, who co-boarded the now iconic dance scene, said this: "The storyboards for the dance. This was a collaboration between Haley Foster and myself. At some point, I got carried away and timed it to Via Loose Loose by Kumi Tanioka. This was my first time getting to do anything even remotely queer, and I've never been prouder of any board." Board artist Charlie Bryant shared some of his boards for the episode as well. "I'm bi, and I'm so happy to have worked on Grom. It was my last episode on the Owl House team, and it will always be so special to me. Everyone involved made it my favorite ep, and just like the fandom, I can't wait to see what's next." Fellow board artist Kat Harmon also said this after the season finale: "Working on the Owl House has been a whirlwind of an experience. I can't tell you how much it means to me as a goofy brown bisexual woman to be on a show whose main character is a goofy brown bisexual girl, and I can't thank Dana Terrace enough for letting me be a part of it." Writer for the episode, Molly Knox Ostertag, who is also married to She-Ra and the Princesses of Power showrunner Noelle Stevenson, said this on Twitter prior to the episode airing: "Grom is the first big thing I've written that will be on, like, real TV. I'm excited for y'all to see it. And that's definitely a hell of an episode to be your first major writing credit for TV." But representation matters, and with members of the crew being part of the LGBTQ+ community, it's easy to see why characters like Luce and Amity, or episodes like Enchanting Gromfright and Wing It Like Witches, feel like good representation. Now, another aspect that I like is how normalized the representation is in the show. This is something that Dana wanted in the world of the Boiling Isles, and we see that in the show outside of our main group. In Understanding Willow, we see that Willow has 2 dads, and in the following episode, Enchanting Gromfright, we see 2 male students dancing together. But when it comes to our main characters, from early on we see hints of Luce being bi, blushing when both Edric and Emra wink at her in Lost in Language and referring to a crush as her in Adventures in the Elements. In Lost in Language, Dana specifically even noted how her board artists were almost in disbelief that Luce was going to blush at both twins.
I remember Lost in Languages when we started boarding that, and the board artists were like, wait, is she gonna blush at Emra and Edric? And I'm like, yeah. But is this gonna be okay?
They're both cute.
Now, usually these kinds of things fall in line with the blink and you'll miss it type representation in shows. But as we now know with the full season out, these were never intended to be the only instances of representation that we would see. They were just smaller moments for explicitly queer characters, thus avoiding that categorization. Which is awesome because at this point in time, with season 1 out and season 2 on the way, we have the potential to see the development of a romantic relationship between Luce and Amity. In an AMA that Dana did, this was one of her responses. Romantic threads are fun, and I love how many people are connecting to that storyline, but my personal taste as a storyteller will never allow me to write a full-on romance saga. That being said, me and the crew are having a crap ton of fun developing this thread in season 2. All the ins and outs of these storylines we're keeping track of feels like we're knitting. Now, Luce is definitely a character who is interested in crushes and romance, but she has been completely oblivious to Amity's behavior and affections later in the season. Amity is a character that's introduced as a rival and bully character to parallel Luce, though the show was pretty quick to show that she isn't a bad person and has an icy exterior due to circumstance. From Convention, we see Luce start to break down her walls, and then in Lost in Language, when she accepts Luce's offer to borrow her book, Amity notes how she hasn't been the friendliest witch. By Adventures in the Elements, we see that Luce and Amity are on far better terms and friendly with each other. By the end of the episode, we see Amity's crush on Luce starting to form, with her getting ready to attend Hexside and a potential Azura book club. With the following episode, The First Day, Amity is seen legit talking to herself in the middle of the hallway during school.
Where do the doors go? So you two go to the same school now. That doesn't change anything. Huh?
Though not explicitly stated, this is about Luce. Meaning at this point, Amity is likely aware of her growing feelings. With Understanding Willow, this episode primarily deals with Amity facing her past and the hurt she caused Willow in their childhood. This ultimately ends with the two taking a step in the right direction in trying to repair their friendship. But there are moments sprinkled in this episode with Amity blushing around Luce. Now, ever since Convention, when Luce went to comfort and apologize to Amity, we've seen Luce show her continual kindness and compassion. So it makes sense from Amity's perspective of having a crush on Luce, because Amity is coming from a place of not having a close relationship with her parents and only having friends that are picked for her. Her relationship with Edric and Emra has definitely improved over the course of the show thus far, but prior to Luce arriving on the Isles, it seems that she just found the two irritable and annoying. So having Luce in her life, who is always showing her kindness, it makes sense why Amity would catch feelings so quickly. Dana also said the following in her AMA. I definitely think Luce is her first crush, or at least her first big crush. That's why it's so overwhelming. But these feelings end up being a major plot point in Enchanting Gromfright, with Amity's biggest fear being rejection from Luce. But many viewers found that Grom could also be symbolic of the fear from LGBTQ youths getting outed to peers at school. This symbolism was unintended, and it just happened to work with the already established narrative of the episode.
The quick answer is that it just happened to work, and as a metaphor, people who do connect to it that way, their interpretation is completely valid.
As Dana stated earlier in the interview, the Boiling Isles is intended to be a place that is more open-minded and accepting.
In creating the Boiling Isles, from the very conception of it in development, I wanted this world to be free of homophobia, free of transphobia, free of that very specific flavor of hatred, and it's just... I do think it's important to show the struggle many queer kids face in conservative homes and countries. But I also think it's equally important to just show this stuff being super normalized, especially because I knew that this show was going to be watched by kids and their parents, and the little Disney logo was going to be in the corner. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we should be leaning on Disney to, be the spearhead of any any change. They are just a media corporation looking to make a buck. But you just know that with a brand as widely known as Disney, seeing like a girl have a crush on another girl be completely normalized, no one really bats an eye on it. It just feels good. It just feels like, oh man, I wanted to see it normalized and just treated super chill.
But bringing us back to the episodes, if Amity wasn't crushing hard on Luz before, she's definitely crushing hard now after a magical dance fight. Two girls dancing, one of which is wearing a tux and tutu in a Disney Channel show, wasn't something I was expecting to see anytime soon, but here we are. And not only that, but the reveal of who Amity wanted to ask is as plain as day. A girl wanted to ask another girl out to a dance. Now, I'm going to be honest in saying that after Enchanting Gromfright aired, I thought that any romantic plot thread with Luz and Amity wouldn't be elaborated on much. Based on Disney's track record, I thought that Enchanting Gromfright was basically the fine, you get one gay episode, but I was happily and quickly proven wrong with the following episode, Wing It Like Witches. This episode was also written by Molly Knox Ostertag. And my god, Amity can barely function this episode, blushing, getting flustered, the whole deal. If anyone had any doubts that Amity was crushing on Luz last episode, Dana and the crew made sure to completely obliterate them with this episode. In her interview, Dana also stated that any notes or issues they have with characters aren't because of them being LGBTQ.
If there's any problems between the characters, it's over other story stuff, but never about that.
In children's media specifically, most crushes or any romantic interests are heterosexual. So it's so nice and refreshing to see a girl crushing on another girl depicted as completely normal and done in a believable way. As someone who identifies as bi, I know I would have benefited a lot from seeing a crush situation like we're seeing with Amity and Luz when I was younger. And even though I couldn't have that representation, I'm happy to know that younger viewers do, and they'll see themselves in characters like Luz and Amity. But hell, there are a lot of people who watch The Owl House that are like me in their 20s and even older and relate to these characters. And I think a lot of this goes back to the members of the crew being part of the LGBTQ community and being able to put the kind of representation that they want to see in shows. The other great thing is that the writing for both characters is good. For Luz and Amity, I feel like their sexuality is a part of their character, but not what defines them. They're complicated and layered. And again, I'm honestly really thankful for this because viewers will get to see well thought out and developed characters who also just happen to be LGBTQ. And specifically for younger viewers, I think characters like Luz and Amity will help them see themselves in media. That means creative voices several years from now who watch shows like The Owl House will continue to better represent the LGBTQ community in shows both aimed at younger and older audiences. And I think the craziest thing for me when it comes to Luz and Amity's relationship is that we are only a season in with a second one on the way. Everything I just talked about was only cultivated in a season, primarily the second half of the season as well, meaning we'll have even more time to explore this plot thread in future episodes. And while Dana said that the romantic plot thread will never be the main focus, it still means that we'll continue to see Luz and Amity's relationship grow. I mean, she did say that she and the crew are having a lot of fun with it, so that leaves me feeling pretty hopeful. But at the end of the day, I'm just really happy to see good LGBTQ+ representation in cartoons. I mean, better late than never, right? And with the Owl House marking that major milestone with Luz and Amity, I can only imagine the kinds of stories and characters we'll be seeing several years from now. But it's thanks to Dana and the Owl House crew that they have taken a huge step in the right direction for better LGBTQ+ representation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and until next time guys, take care.